Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm going to be talking about Overwatch League Week 8 matches for the Mid-Season Madness. This was, as the tournament says, it's very madness, we'll say that. So obviously, just remember, like, comment, subscribe, it would really help me. And I'm a tiny bit sick. My cough is really bad, which is why I'm talking a bit quietly now, but I'm getting a bit better, which is good. So, the first, I guess we'll just talk about the results for Week 8, and here are the results. So we had the Philadelphia Fusion versus the LA Valiant, and that was a 3-2 victory for the Valiant. Now, this is definitely, basically upwards for the Valiant. They won both of their matches this week. I think also adding Marvel into the lineup was a great decision. They also got rid of Coldest and Wuyao, as well as in doing like the off season, well, not really the off season, but just between the 2 weeks. But Valiant, they look way better now. Fusion a bit struggling, but this is obviously the first time that we've actually seen them, and the only time as of right now that we've seen them in this tournament. Next up, the Soul, and Molly also got MVP. Next up, Soul Dynasty versus the Chengdu Hunters, and that was win to the Soul Dynasty. Pretty close game. I thought the Hunters was actually going to, make close, but not like probably like a 3-1 game. That I thought that's where that was gonna go, but no, it was 3-2. It went all the way down to the wire to Oasis, and it was Prophet who got MVP, which is pretty neat. I think it also means that the Dynasty has locked themselves into the Midseason Madness playoffs, which is obviously going to be now in Hawaii for some stupid reason. Anyway, so next we have the London Spitfire versus the NYXL, and it was a very convincing 3-0 victory for the London Spitfire. Obviously, the NYXL, they haven't been looking too good during this whole season. Spark got MVP, and the Spitfire are now a very solid midfield team, which is actually surprising for me to say, because everyone, including myself, thought they were probably gonna bomb out and just I don't know, just dick about in the at the bottom of the table. But they're actually now actual competitors, so that'll be very interesting to see that. Next up, it is the Dallas Fuel versus the Florida Mayhem, and it's a 3-0 victory for the Dallas Fuel. As I've been seeing on the internet, on Twitter, Gario, he was fucking cracked. He was just, he basically carried his team. And for the Mayhem, that team is just all in full shambles, I must say. They have great pieces, they have some great players. They just can't use them effectively, which is the issue. So I wouldn't. Maybe I would count Florida Mayhem out of the Midseason Madness as of right now, but they've been looking too great, I'll be honest. And next up, it is the Atlanta Reign versus the Vancouver Titans. It was a 3-1 victory for the Atlanta Reign. Kai got MVP. When I watched like a tiny bit of it in the morning, and when I saw that the Titans actually won the first map, I was very disappointed. But luckily, they did come back, and they did end up winning the game, which is great for the season to the playoffs for the Midseason Madness. And the Titans still needs to fix some changes up. I don't know when they're going to have another coach. They should right now, but they haven't for some reason, which is stupid. Next up, it is a Hangzhou Spark versus the Guangzhou Charge, and the Charge, they continue to struggle. There was also stuff about Eileen, that he left the team, I think due to like big controversy that the Charge was saying, even though what Eileen said, he basically said it was because he was just too expensive to keep his contract, like he was just worth a lot of money, and the Charge couldn't keep him. I don't know why the Charge was like, oh my god, this is a massive thing that if we kept him in more, it would deteriorate the team as a whole and ruin the reputation of the Guangzhou Charge. And pretty stupid of them to word it like that, but it is what it is. Hopefully Eileen does get back into the Overwatch League very soon. But they have not been looking too good, I must say. And Shelly got MVP. I mean, the Spark They have woken up. They have finally woken up, and it's also great because now that maybe the Spark might be actually a better team than the Shanghai Dragons. Maybe they might be also in contention of winning the Overwatch League. Obviously, Overwatch 2 is all craziness, so I don't really know. It's crazy, we'll say that. Next up, the Shanghai Dragons versus the Seoul Dynasty. It was a pretty convincing 3-0 victory for the Seoul Dynasty. I mean, I'll get to the I'll get to talk about the Shanghai Dragons soon, but just want to just keep talking about the results. Very easy win for the Dynasty. Smurf got MVP. What more do you really have to say? The Dragons have been struggling. Dynasty have been looking really good. Another team which has been struggling is the Philadelphia Fusion, as they lost to the Chengdu Hunters in 3-1 fashion. Obviously, the Hunters, they do look a bit better now in this tournament, so it's a good thing. I mean, obviously, if you're a Chengdu Hunters fan, that's also a great thing to see that your team is actually doing well. But that's still very much a mid-pack team, and the Fusion, they've been going downwards the whole time ever since their win. Ever since in the grand final, I think it was, in the kickoff clash, they've just been going downhill. So there might be a chance that the Future may miss out on this on the Midseason Madness tournament, but we'll see about that. Next up, it is the Washington Justice versus the Toronto Defiant. And I haven't been talking about the Justice a lot, probably because this is their this is their only match during this week, but they have been incredibly inconsistent, just like the Defiant, and that's why I kind of figured this match would be pretty interesting. Kind of was 3-1 victory for the Toronto Defiant. Muse got MVP. What more do I really have to say? I mean, these two teams are very similar. They're very inconsistent. Like, sometimes they will show up big time, the other time they wouldn't be showing up. So that match is all done. The San Francisco Shock versus the Atlanta Reign. It was a 3-1 victory for the Shock. Valiant got MVP. I mean, the Shock is unstoppable, I must say. Yes, the only loss was to the Atlanta Reign and the Dallas Fuel. But that was also on LAN. This is online now, and they just look 10 times better, I must say. So we'll see how they go in Hawaii. They're probably going to be contenders of winning Hawaii as well in the Midseason Madness tournament. Next up, 3-0 victory for the Dallas Fuel against the Vancouver Titans. And I mean, it was kind of close, but it was definitely a victory for the Fuel. 3-0, Fearless got MVP. Fearless got MVP. So it was pretty, I guess pretty convincing, I must say. So that's the Fuel all done. So let's go move on to the final East matches, and we got the LA Valiant versus the Guangzhou Charge, and I mean, Valiant won this. This is also good signs for them. Marvel got MVP, obviously the new player joining the team. They got MVP, and I mean, it's actually paid out well for them. So, which is really good, and they'll keep going up, and so where to go is up from here. So hopefully, I did actually predict them to make it to the Midseason Madness, and I will be very surprised if they actually do, I'll be honest, because it'll be a big jump from where they are to the top 4, which you need to, is it top 4? Yeah, I think, yeah, the top 4 needed to advance to the Midseason Madness tournament. And finally, Hangzhou Spark versus the Shanghai Dragons. Dragons, what the fuck are you guys doing? Just what the fuck? I know, I mean, obviously they have not been looking too strong. I think they put Bebe into this. I'm not saying it was Bebe's fault or anything. It's the whole team. The whole team is just being shit. They didn't look good. I mean, they look decent. So I was saying in the kickoff clash in here in the Midseason Madness, they look horrible. They look absolutely dreadful. So yeah, so the Hangzhou Spark easy 3-0 victory for them. Alpha Yi, or Alpha, whatever you want to say his name as, he got MVP. For the final 3 West matches, so we got the San Francisco Shock against the Florida Mayhem, and Proper got MVP. Wow, who saw that coming? no one saw that. I'm like, wow. I mean, everyone saw that coming. I should say that probably got an MVP. I mean, he's a nutcase. He's crazy now. Finally, in Aussie League, we finally get to see him in the Overwatch League stage. He's been doing a phenomenal job. So 3-1 victory for the Shock against the Mayhem. The Houston Outlaws versus the LA Gladiators. It was a 3-0 victory for the Gladiators. Shu got MVP there. I mean, the Outlaws, I think they C9'd one of them. I think, what was it? They definitely C9'd, because I saw on Twitter they C9'd a map. I don't know which one it was, but not a great look for the Outlaws. And finally, the Boston Uprising versus the Powers Eternal. It was a 3-0 victory for the Boston Uprising, and Crimzo got MVP. So a lot of craziness really happening mainly in the East region. The Shanghai Dragon struggling, LA Valiant and the Hungry Spark been looking really good. Seoul Dynasty as well. The Philadelphia Fusion have been slowly going down. The Charge, we just didn't talk about them. As for the West, Shock have been dominant like always. London Spitfire made a massive resurgence. NYXL, horrible. Titans, horrible. Atlanta Rain been looking pretty good. Justice and Defiant a bit iffy still. Eternal, we don't talk about them. Uprising have been looking decent. Outlaws and Gladiators. The Gladiators have been looking really good. Outlaws been mid-pack. The Fuel have been looking pretty good as well. And Mayhem, they've been horrible. Oh god. So with week 8 matches all done, let's have a look at week 9. And week 9 is basically the same size as it was week 8. So week 9 will start off with the Hangzhou Spark versus the Philadelphia Fusion, and the Chengdu Hunters versus the Guangzhou Charge. Then in the West, we got the London Spitfire versus the Paris Eternal, and the Houston Outlaws versus the Atlanta Rain, and the LA Gladiators versus the Toronto Defiant. Speaking about the Defiant, I forgot to mention that they recently added Docs as their assistant coach. And then we got the Seoul Dynasty versus Guangzhou Charge, the LA Valiant versus the Chengdu Hunters, and the Shanghai Dragons versus the Philadelphia Fusion. And then for the West, we got the SF Shock versus the Vancouver Titans, the LA Gladiators versus the Washington Justice, and the Toronto Fire versus the Paris Eternal. And for the East, we got the Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty, the LA Valiant versus the Shanghai Dragons. That'll be a good match to watch. And then finally for the West, we got the Washington Justice versus the London Spitfire, the Dallas Fuel versus the NYXL, and the Boston Uprising versus the Florida Mayhem. So obviously I think match of the week, I'll just say for both East and West. For the East is definitely LA Valiant versus the Shanghai. Actually, it could be the two matches on July 3rd. I should say the Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty. That'll be a great match. And then the LA Valiant versus the Shanghai Dragons, that'll also be a really, really good match. As for the West might be pretty difficult. You could maybe say the Battle of Europe between the London Spitfire versus the Paris Eternal. That might be pretty good. What other ones are there? Could maybe even say the Boston Uprising versus the Florida Mayhem. That could be pretty good. We just have to wait and see there. Oh, actually maybe the Outlaws versus Rain. I think that might be my match of the week for the West region. Let's now have a look at the standings, and here are the standings. So the West standings, the San Francisco Shock, the LA Gladiators, and the Dallas Fuel are automatically in to the Midseason Madness, so they've advanced to the tournament. In 4th place, we got the Houston Outlaws and then the Atlanta Rain, both with 7 points. Then the London Spitfire and the Toronto Defiant and the Florida Mayhem, all 3 with 6 points. And then 9th place, we got the Washington Justice with 5 points. They still have a chance of making it to the top 8. And then we got the Boston Uprising versus Then we got the Boston Uprising with 3 points. And then 11th place, tied for 11th actually, is the NYXL and the Paris Eternal. They are both with 1 point. The Vancouver Titans are still yet to win a map. A match, I should say, actually. Not a map, a match. Over for the East, it is the Seoul Dynasty and the Hangzhou Spark. They have both punched a ticket to Hawaii. The Shanghai Dragons in 3rd place with 6 points. The Philadelphia Fusion with 5 points. And in 5th place, we got the Chengdu Hunters and the LA Valiant both with 3 points, and the Guangzhou Charge with 1 point. So that's really about it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you guys all next time in the next one. Goodbye.